Hey everybody, hope you had a great weekend. We are here on a Tuesday. Didn't get a show in yesterday, but we are back today. Full lineup coming this week with lots to talk about from over the weekend and last night, which a few different things happened in the NFL that we're going to talk about today. But this week, tomorrow, NFC North preview show. That's forthcoming. We're going to do a regular scheduled show on Thursday, and then Friday, we're going to preview the weekend. We've got a big UFC card coming this weekend, some PFL events, and some obviously baseball and other things in the world of sports, FedEx Cup playoffs. And I also want to get in the AFC East preview show before the end of the week as well. So that's all coming this week. Next week, we'll be doing a preview for college football because technically college football begins next Saturday, week 0. So lots happening in the world of sports. Today on the program, we're going to talk about the National Bank Open, tennis, what happened, UFC weekend at the Apex, and some more news when it comes to fights, things of that nature. Stay tuned for that. FedEx Cup playoffs, Lucas Glover, what he's done the last 2 weeks, what he's done the last month, incredible. NFL, Dalvin Cook has a team, finally, and Zach Martin is back at Cowboys camp, and some rookie quarterbacks that look pretty good over the weekend. Because yes, I did watch a lot of NFL preseason. Probably too much, but I mean, I could be doing other things. That is not as productive for me. So give me a break on that one. But I want to start off the show by saying it was tough news yesterday regarding the Toronto Maple Leafs. And if you missed it, the 21-year-old former first-round pick prospect Rodion Amirov died at the age of 21. He had a brain tumor. He had been battling it for some time. He had not played since being diagnosed with the brain tumor. And unfortunately, he couldn't best cancer, which few do, and the ones that do are incredibly strong. And cancer is the worst thing on earth, if you ask me. It's just there's nothing positive about it, nothing good comes from it. But for a 21-year-old to die, it's awful. And the conversation, should the Maple Leafs, should they have drafted him, that is not the conversation to have today or tomorrow or the next day, quite frankly. It's more about just it's horrible news. I remember watching him play young, and he was a very talented player. And he seemed very popular. The organization spoke glowingly about him. He was over here, I believe, once in North America as a member of the Maple Leafs. He was on the bench, being introduced. It's just horrible. I wish his family all the best during this brutal time. But you never want to see somebody that young die. I mean, that goes without saying. But I saw that yesterday. It was in the middle of the afternoon. It came as a surprise to me. I thought he was kind of on the road to recovery, but you never know with cancer. You can say it's going well, but nobody really knows the truth other than the people closely involved. So for him, and then the Maple Leafs also lost, a legend of their organization this morning. Bobby Baun, hard-nosed defenseman, died at the age of 86. He played with a broken leg in the 1964 Stanley Cup final. But a Maple Leaf great, a Maple Leaf that was a Stanley Cup champion. They seem to be dropping like flies, the last players to win a Stanley Cup with the Maple Leafs that are currently living. Not meant to be a joke, just for all the Leaf fans out there, don't get crabby with me, just a fact. But a legend of the game, a Maple Leaf legend, and another a sad story. So unfortunate news for the Maple Leafs a rough 24 hours for the Maple Leafs organization, to say the least. And yeah, let's pivot to something. I wish I could say we were pivoting. Well, this is more optimistic. This is more friendly, jovial, but it's not positive. I can't say it that way. Let's go to stay in Toronto. Let's go to the Blue Jays. You know, the ranks are about separated by about I don't know, 3-minute walk. Well, maybe for normal people. For me, I'd probably get there in a minute and a half. But I mean, you know, it's not a far jaunt to get from the Rogers Center to Air Canada, Scotiabank, whatever the hell they call it now. But the Toronto Blue Jays, I love to be right. Who doesn't in life? It's better to be right than to be wrong. If you're wrong, you have to be sorry, and then you have to apologize, and then you have to grovel, and you have to give in because you're wrong. When you're right, you get to puff your chest out, and you get to be happy, and you get to, kind of show people, hey, I was right, you were wrong. But in this case, I'm not happy that I'm right. Because this was so predictable. This was such an easy position to be right. And what I'm referring to here is that the Toronto Blue Jays and the way that they've handled Alek Manoah. On Friday, the Toronto Blue Jays optioned Alek Manoah to AAA Buffalo following his brief stint back with the club for about a month. In that month, he had one good start, which was fringe good, against the Detroit Tigers, which might as well be the bad news fucking Bears because they can't hit the backside of a barn door. But he had like he didn't have a walk that night for the first time in a year and a half, and everything was hunky-dory. Alek Manoah is back, the complex league. Wow, the Blue Jays didn't screw this up. He was only down there for a month. Mechanics are fixed. We're all smiles. Yet less than a month later, he's down in AAA Buffalo, and they would rather see Hyunjin Ryu pitch innings other than the guy who was nominated for the Cy Young last year. To me, that doesn't seem all that positive. To me, that doesn't seem like the right way to handle a situation. Again, I could be wrong, but I'm not. The Toronto Blue Jays don't know what they're doing with Alek Manoah. Let's just put the cards on the table. They don't know. Oh, it's the game before the All-Star break. Let's bring him back up because we know he's playing the Tigers, so we can boost his confidence, and we got Alek Manoah back, Cy Young form, heading into the trade deadline period. Okay. He pitches 5 innings, Kikuchi territory, against the Detroit Tigers. 5 innings. An ace goes 5 innings? Puh. Okay. Against the Tigers, he goes 5 innings, and then I guess what the Blue Jays forgot in this instance is that there's more teams in baseball other than the Detroit Tigers, and there are other teams in baseball who are better than the Detroit Tigers. If every start was against Detroit, okay, you got something here. You can go, you can win. He's gonna be a great pitcher because the Tigers is like pitching against a AAA club. Okay, what about Baltimore? Oh shit, forgot about them with Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman and Anthony Santander, and we're just gonna hit balls over the wall because you can't hit the fucking strike zone, Alek Manoah. Or then you pitch against the Guardians, not exactly the 27 Yankees, and he gives up 4 walks to them, and he only pitches 4 innings. I want to make this clear again. I want Alek Manoah to pitch well. Now, I don't care if the Blue Jays win. I don't care if any team wins. I like Alek Manoah. I like his personality. I like him on the mound. But The pitch clock changed things. It's helped pitchers, it's hurt pitchers. It's helped batters, it's hurt batters. To me, it's hurt him. He's not in great shape, let's be honest. Just isn't. His velocity is down. He seems tired after about 2 innings of work. And when your velocity is down, you can't hit the strike zone. And when you are in the middle of the plate, you're in trouble. And the Blue Jays made the decision. Hyunjin Ryu off Tommy John is more valuable, is a safer bet than you. Wow. Wow, that is not a good spot to be in. Second minor stint of the season, I don't know what they do with him from here. I'm sure he'll be called up in September, which is 16 days away. I'm sure they'll expand the roster and they'll put him on it. But he's not a postseason arm. If the Blue Jays make the playoffs, they'll be a wildcard team. And they go Gosman game 1. I hear a lot that Bassett's a lock game 2. I don't think so. Kikuchi? Maybe. I think it's a debate. Certainly. I don't think it's a lock that it's, we got to go Bassett game 2. Kikuchi's got a 3.53 ERA. It's pretty damn good. He's been consistent. He's been as consistent as Bassett all year long. But it's Gosman. Then it's a debate who you pivot into. Do you go Gosman, Kikuchi, Berrios? Bassett goes game 4? That would be my decision. That would be my choice. And again, we have a month and a half, and maybe some pitchers get hot. But Kikuchi's been as good or better than those other 2 guys. Did you watch Berrios Saturday afternoon? Wasn't all that good against the Cubs. Kikuchi goes tonight against the Phillies. Now, it's a rotation that's been very good. It's not the weakness of their team. It's their bats because they can't hit with runners in scoring position. But do you feel great about that pitching staff going into a postseason? I particularly wouldn't. I think they got some holes. And there's some weaknesses on that team, certainly. In that pitching staff, can they give you length? Do you have your bullpen's good, but can you withstand those innings? So this team's still trying to figure themselves out. The Blue Jays have underperformed all season long. They're in a third wildcard position. They didn't expect to be in a third wildcard position on August 15th. But here they are. So, to me, it's open auditions for them after Gosman, who's pitching in the postseason. But Alek Manoah is not part of those auditions. Because you can't be if you're pitching in AAA. But this is another fumble by this organization with the same player. I get it. You're desperate. You got to make the postseason. I'm sure Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro are feeling some pressure from the organization to make the playoffs, to have some asses in seats. Because guess what? If they make the playoffs as a third wildcard team, you don't get home dates. They would go to Minnesota for a best 2 out of 3. 0 games in Toronto, meaning 0 revenue to the Rogers Center, which they're renovating after the season's over for another $100+ million. It would be nice to have some money brought into the field with playoff dates if you're going to put that much money in. That makes sense, right? It's not rocket science. You'd rather have the money to spend than to, keep digging into loans, whatever the hell else they're doing there. Asking Rodgers and Bell for more money. How about, hey, we got money. We just went to the postseason. We went on a deep run. You say all that they got the potential to do it. Sure, okay. Are they better than the Orioles? No. Are they better than the Rays? Maybe. The Rays keep dropping like flies. Pitcher after pitcher, Wander Franco. I'm not even going to get into that yet. Not enough details. All I know is suspended for the week, and he might be a peeping Tom on social media. Look up the story, but it's really unclear right now. He's one of the best young players in baseball, but my God. But yet the Rays, no Rasmussen, no Franco, no Shane McClanahan, and they win 10-2 in San Francisco last night. And they're well above the Blue Jays, and they've had way more problems with injuries and things of that nature than the Blue Jays have this year. Blue Jays have gotten injuries for the last 3 weeks. That's it. They were clean until then. Bo Bichette's gone a month. We're dropping. It's when it rains, it pours. One goddamn injury. Manoah doesn't count. That's not an injury. That's just a guy who can't pitch. So you can look at your division and say, we can beat these teams, but you got to be in to beat them. I think there's more to it. It's a desperate feeling for this team. Because quite honestly, the Blue Jays are 2 games back of Houston for the second wildcard spot. They don't want that second wildcard spot. They don't want to catch Houston. Because if Houston is in the second wildcard spot, they play Tampa. You're telling me the Blue Jays want to go down the Trop to play a best 2 out of 3? No. That's their house of horrors. They lose every game at the Trop. They stink at the Trop. They go to Minnesota, who has the worst playoff pedigree in some time now. All they do is lose, Minnesota. They haven't won a playoff series in a very long time. They seemingly play the Yankees every year. They lose. That's who the Blue Jays want. If you're a Blue Jays fan, you don't want them to get higher than the third wildcard spot because guess what? Newsflash, they're not winning their division. So if you have to pick one, be the third wildcard. Easy. Be the third wildcard team. Take on Minnesota. Hope for the best. I mean, you got to make the playoffs first, which is no given because Seattle's right on their heels. The Red Sox aren't going away. The Yankees are done. They've completely packed it in. But the Blue Jays, they fumbled the Alek Manoah bag again. Again. Another mistake. Handled it poorly. See how they recover. But I'm not optimistic. Other things around baseball, the Marlins are red hot. They win against Houston last night. Josh Bell, since being traded there, has been phenomenal. He's scoring run. He's getting a homer run after run. He's driving them in. So the Marlins are catching fire. They got a race. San Francisco's hit the ditch a little bit. Phillies are in Toronto tonight. It should be a fun series. Just a 2-gamer. But you get interleague play and you get Philly in town. Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos. Fun stuff. But the Blue Jays, just you look more and more incompetent doing this stuff because you don't know what the hell you're doing. And everybody knows that you don't know what the hell you're doing. I hope Alek Manoah can find his form. But the organization is not helping him. Because they keep screwing this up. National Bank Open. Tennis tournament in Canada. I'll tell you, this tournament was like our summer here in New Brunswick. Rain delayed. My God. I feel bad for the women in Montreal of this tournament. Alina Rybakina had to start her match after 11, went 3 hours. The match ended at 2:53 local. And then she didn't get to play Saturday because of the rain delay. Then she plays Sunday afternoon. She had nothing left. Long matches, no sleep, just completely. I mean, you can't do anything about it. There's no roof. But I feel bad for these women. Pegula wins her second WTA 1000 event. And it's a great moment because Jessica Pegula is basically her home tournament. Her parents own the Buffalo Sabres and the Buffalo Bills. She's a top 5 player in the world. She's a top 5 doubles player in the world with Coco Gauff. So it's a great moment, but the match was awful. 6-1, 6-love, just complete domination. And then in the men's side, Jannik Sinner, another really good story. He bests Tommy Paul on Saturday night, kind of an easy match, and he gets to the final and he wins there against Alex de Minaur in straight sets. Both finals were anticlimactic. Both finals were predictable. The best match of the tournament to me was Tommy Paul and Carlos Alcaraz, which the biggest win of Tommy Paul's career, certainly. And he's had a really good season on the men's draw for the Americans. He's found his game. He's starting to show that he's got some skills. He's got some fight in him. He's currently playing in Cincinnati right now, where they almost lost the whole day yesterday because of, go figure, rain delays. But, it was great to see a tournament in Canada. I think it went well for Canadians. Raonic was the best story, as I talked about. Felix Auger-Aliassime did win yesterday. He was on a 5-match losing streak. He beat Matteo Berrettini. That's a tough opponent. That's a big win, 3 sets. He's got Adrian Manarino tonight in Cincinnati. So an opportunity for him to keep progressing and find some confidence going into the U.S. Open. But then Bianca Andreescu loses in the first round, and now she pulled out of Cincinnati because she's got a back issue. I don't know. She's interesting. She's the only Grand Slam champion in Canada's history. But I think if you're a Canadian and you're putting aside your flag, if you get rid of the flag like they do with the Russians, because you can't put the flag up anymore, which I get, but also not really. I find that pretty stupid. But we won't get into the political discussion today. If you take aside the flag, you just see Bianca Andreescu, and she could be from Poland, wherever she's from. Optically, she's not a fun player to watch because she bitches all the time, and it's constantly nagging. It's constantly, woe is me. And it's never her fault. It's always somebody else. She's yelling at her corner. And tennis players love to do this. This is not just a female thing. Andy Murray was famous for this. Andy Murray would berate his mother in his box, for Christ's sake. So tennis players love to do this. They're dramatic, especially in particular the ones from England. Probably because they're associated with the Queen. No statistical analysis on that or any kind of proof. That's just a theory that I've dug up myself from just pure dislike. But again, I think it could be. I think it's probably true. But you can do your own research on that and get back to me if you wish. I'd appreciate that. But she doesn't play enough. And when she is playing, she loses, and she's bitching and complaining. And every match, she seems to get injured during. I don't know. It happened with Eugenie Bouchard. She's on commentary for the National Bank Open because she can't qualify for the event. That doesn't get talked about on the broadcast, that she tried to qualify for it and couldn't win the matches to get in. So then they hire her to come do which she was fine. She was fine. She was good. She's smart. She's a very attractive woman, and she's good on the desk. Don't get me wrong, but that doesn't get that doesn't get talked about. You know, seems that every coach that NHL now, they love to bring in old coaches. Dallas Aikens was there for a round. He was actually very good. The Lalonde from Detroit. You know why they're there? Because it's talked about. Oh, he's the head coach of Detroit. They're not in the playoffs. That's why they're working. That's why they're doing this gig. But yeah, Canadian tennis not in a great spot right now. But with that being said, could Felix or Dennis go on a deep run at the U.S. Open? Sure. Because they're supremely talented and they have all the gifts to do it. They just haven't put it together this year, either one of them this year at all. And there's just no consistency there that makes you believe that they're going to. But Cincinnati's another big event. Novak Djokovic is in the field here. He has not played since losing to Alcaraz at Wimbledon. So big opportunity for him. Because Tommy Paul in Zverev, Dimitrov this afternoon. That's a good match. Cameron Norrie, the Brit, against Gael Monfils after his great run in Canada. Carlos Alcaraz is on against Jordan Thompson, the Aussie, tonight. So he's on center court later this evening. The women's draw. Venus Williams won yesterday. Her first time in 4 years she's beaten a player inside the top 20. So a huge moment for her. Also this afternoon, Victoria Azarenka on the court. Danielle Collins, who had a great run in Canada, she had some success. Already today, Petra Kvitova is through. Madison Keys is on court tonight. So the last big event before the U.S. Open in a couple weeks in Flushing Meadows, the last big tune-up. And yeah, the men's and women's draw loaded with talent. You had Lena Rybakina, who had to play. She complained about the way they set up the National Bank Open, the way it went. And she is playing in Cincinnati. She said she was really tired. But she's going to play, and even I know I see here that Iga Swiatek really agreed with her and said that the tour is not doing great with scheduling, the travel's hard, and she kind of came to her defense. So the WTA is under fire right now from their players, and they'll have to answer for that and figure that out, because that's not a good thing to have the two of the top three women's players in the world frustrated with the tour. UFC this weekend. Apex card, not a loaded card as I talked about, but it was fun. 7 prelim fights, 7 finishes, including 6 in the first round. You don't see that often. They were one off the record for first round finishes at a UFC event, so they came close to matching it. But it started off in the prelims with Juliana Miller dropping her second straight fight, this time Luna Santos, knockout in the first round. Damon Blackshear against Jose Johnson. Just the third twister submission in UFC history. Really impressive for him. He's won 4 in a row. Jacqueline Amirmium, this is the third round she gets a KO. Heavyweight bout, Martin Buday from Slovakia. He's won 12 straight fights. Beats Josh Parisian, dominating fashion. Looked really smooth. He's great on the ground, but he was awesome on the feet, dominated. Isaac Dalgarian, a Division I wrestler, Didn't win it ultimately, but he gets another first round finish where he beats Francis Marshall. His UFC debut after being on the Contender Series, he will look great. He looks strong, and he said he wants to get back in the cage before the year's over. Terrence McKinney, the ultimate fighter, pardon the pun, lost a fight last month where he got his arm caught, he gets submitted, comes back less than a month later, KO win over Mike Breeden. Looked great. He looked great in the first round of his last fight, just got in a little bit of trouble. And then he says yesterday he might be fighting in September. This guy he's an animal. Then Marcus McGahee, another guy on the rise, a first round, just a nasty. He's a boxer to say the least, right underneath the chin of JP Buys. He has 2 straight wins in the UFC. So some fun prelims. On the main card, the biggest things that happened, I would argue, third to last fight, Khalil Roundtree knocks out Chris Daukaus. He's a ranked light heavyweight. He's won 3 fights in a row. Looks confident. 5 straight wins. And he said he wants to fight a higher ranked fighter above him. And he said he wants to go 5 rounds. And I like this call out from him. I like that he's thinking he didn't name an opponent because it's tricky. Because you can name a guy and he might be booked, which kind of defeats the purpose. But Roundtree is number 11 in the rankings. And he says, I want a main event on a fight night and make it 5 rounds. Well, I see 2 guys that this could potentially work. Alexander Rakic has not fought in over a year. When he comes back, I think it's smart for him to take a guy lower in the rankings, kind of like what Vicente Luque in this main event of this weekend's card did after having a serious brain injury, and it helps you prepare. I think it gets you in a better mindset. Rakic was fighting Jan Blachowicz, and his knee blew out, and we haven't seen him since. Well, Roundtree looks strong. He wins in the first round. I don't expect he has many injuries. If Rakic could come back before the year's over, that could be a main event of a fight night. You put that card at the Apex. I think that's fine. Nikita Krylov is another guy who's 6th in the rankings, who's sitting there. I think that fight would make sense. Because I look around, everybody else is kind of booked. Dominic Reyes, but Dominic Reyes is below him. I don't want to do that if I'm Roundtree. Plus, Dominic Reyes is kind of Chris Daukaus territory where he's punch drunk. His chin is no longer there. That's not a fight that makes all that much sense. Anthony Smith is booked. Ozdemir's booked. Spann is booked. Johnny Walker's booked. So those are the 2 guys that seem to make sense for me. But Roundtree is a very good light heavyweight. He's got incredible power in those hands. Just he's always in great shape too. Doesn't seem to gas out even with all that muscle mass. So really impressive performance from him. Cub Swanson fought Hakeem Dawodu. Interesting decision on the scorecards. They give it to Cub. He was shocked. He didn't think he won. He said that, but they give him the decision. I thought it was close. I didn't think it was a robbery. I saw that on Twitter. Because I thought Cub easily could. I thought Cub won the first round. I thought the third round was really close. Could have went either way. If you want to give it to Dawodu, if you want to give it to Cub, I don't think this is one of those robbery, horrible judging moments, for me anyway. He was surprised he won. My only thing with that, he should be fighting in front of a crowd. He's a legend of the sport. He's still an awesome fighter to watch. This is a really entertaining fight. He gets a win. And in the main event, Vicente Luque defeats Rafael Dos Anjos via unanimous decision. He looked great. He was measured, composed, strong, great work on the cage. Got to take down RDA a number of times. RDA, a former champion. And I think what it made me think after is that he took the time off, which was good for him because he comes back and he looked confident. And it made me think of the welterweight division and just how loaded it is. He's number 10 in the rankings. In front of him, you have Sean Brady, who has one loss in his MMA career, and he's still really good. You have Jeff Neal above him, the gatekeeper. Wonder Boy, Rachmanov, yikes. Gilbert Burns, Hamzat, who's kind of an 85 now, but Bilal, Colby, Kamaru. Below Vazante Luque, Neil Magny, who's always there. How about Kevin Holland, the true BMF guy? Ian Gary, Jack Della Maddalena. This division is loaded with contenders and loaded with really good fighters. It's tough because I think some guys don't want to fight guys in this division. Jack Della Maddalena doesn't look like he's going to fight in Australia because nobody wants to fight him. I wouldn't either. It's a tough draw. But Luque comes back, gets a big win. He's at number 10. If I'm him, I kind of slow play this a little bit. Jeff Neal had to pull out of the fight with Ian Gary this weekend in Boston. I would love, if I'm Luque, I want to fight Jeff Neal next. Give me another fight that I think Vicente Luque would look at it and say, I go in as the favorite. Yes, he's above me in the rankings, but I believe I can beat this guy. I can beat him with my striking. I can beat him with my wrestling. And I get another victory under my belt. 2 wins coming back, and I feel good because I think he wants to be locked and loaded if you want to take a run at the title. He also talked about fighting Dustin Poirier. I don't think Dustin Poirier is going to fight him. I think if Dustin Poirier is going to 170, he's doing other fights. I think there's a higher likelihood Poirier goes to 170 and fights Nate Diaz, who would come back, then fight Asante Luque. That's just me. Maybe he would, but I don't think that's something Dustin Poirier is really interested in at this point. But Luque's, he's not that old. He still could fight in his prime. You get a couple fights under your belt, you look good, you take a run for the belt potentially. That could happen for him. But good to see him come back. He looked good in the fight. He looked measured. He didn't take a whole lot of risks, but he didn't have to. Since Saturday, it was announced there's a card in Sao Paulo, Brazil in November. The main event will be Gelton Almeida from Brazil fighting Curtis Blades. We've known this for a while, but it's officially confirmed. 2 of the best heavyweights right now. Almeida is he's a freak of a heavyweight, incredibly talented. And Curtis Blades, another tricky guy to fight, so this should be a great main event. And then this coming weekend, we had some problems because Cody Garbrandt had to pull out. But Damon Blackshear, who just fought, as I talked about, comes back in. He's fighting a week later after a win. He's flying to Boston. He's fighting Mario Bautista. Good on him. Good on him. Back-to-back weeks, having to travel, having to make weight again. There's no catch weight. He's fighting at 135 pounds. The dude's a warrior. He's won 3 in a row. You're fighting Bautista, who's won 4 in a row. This is a good fight. And I think they'll put it on the main card because I think they want to put Chris Weidman on the featured prelim as he makes his return back from that horrible leg injury. They'll have the 2 Ultimate Fighter fights as well. But it's stacking up to be a really solid card in Boston. Sterling O'Malley, Weili Zhang, Amanda Lemos, Neil Magny, Ian Gary, Marlon Cheeto Vera, Pedro Munoz. And then you got Mario Bautista and Damon Blackshear. 3 bantamweight fights on the main card. This is smart. They should do this more often. Have the same division loaded with fighters on these cards. Main event is a bantamweight fight. Have bantamweight fights. Pedro Munoz is fighting Chito Vera. You might look at it and say, well, whoever wins this fight, it won't matter because they're not getting a title shot. I don't know that. We can't say that because you never know what happens in MMA. Nobody thought Sean Strickland would be getting a title shot, but he is. If Sean O'Malley knocks out Aljamain Sterling, you could say, well, Merab's the next guy. What if Merab is not available? What if he's injured? I think Henry wants to fight Merab before. So if O'Malley wins, Merab fights Henry, who's fighting Sugar? Because he said on Ariel's show last week, he wants to fight in December. Well, Cheeto's kind of got this history where, is he a great fighter necessarily? No. But he's beaten Sean O'Malley. He knocked him out. So could you sell that as a main event of a pay-per-view? Well, of course, because it's Sean O'Malley, and also because Cheeto beat O'Malley. If Cheeto knocks out Pedro Munoz on Saturday night, O'Malley gets a win over Sterling. Is that a headliner of a pay-per-view that you can book? Yes. Because O'Malley's a really popular fighter, and so is Cheeto. Underratedly popular. People like him. He's an interesting fighter. He doesn't fare well against guys like Sandhagen or Sterling, but if he goes into a fight with O'Shawn O'Malley, who's not going to try to take him down, who's not going to wrestle, could he catch him like he did the first time? Yep. So that's what's happening in the UFC. We also got the Ultimate Fighter tonight, the season finale. The winner, Cody Gibson and Rico fight. They will fight Brad Katona in the bantamweight final. That'll be on Saturday night, so we're still waiting on that. That fight will be tonight on the Ultimate Fighter Dana White Contender Series tonight as well. So lots happening in the mixed martial arts world. FedEx Cup playoffs. Week 1. It's really something. If you're not following golf right now, we're in an interesting spot. The beginning of July, Lucas Glover was 120th in the rankings. He was well outside a playoff spot. He was not qualified to play in the U.S. Open or the Open Championship, but he had to grind and play events hoping to get in, hoping to make the playoff. Meaning he played the Barbasol, finished 5th. He played at the John Deere, finished 6th. He played in the Barracuda. Didn't have a great showing, but I believe he finished T30 there. He goes to the 3M Open. Battled, kind of grinded, finished inside the top 20 there, the 3M. And we go to the Wyndham. The last tournament before the start of the FedEx Cup playoffs, and he wins the event. And he goes from 120th at the start of July to 49th in the blink of an eye. So he wins a lower tier event, and you think, okay, he's going to go into the playoffs. Maybe he'll grind, make the top 50. But Lucas Glover, a.k.a. the Glove, has won back-to-back weeks on the PGA Tour And now he sits 4th in the FedEx Cup standings behind only Jon Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, and Rory McIlroy. Not only is he in the top 50 playing at the BMW this weekend, but because his results lately, he's going to be inside the top 30 unless something disastrous happens for him this upcoming weekend. It doesn't matter. He's going to be inside the top 30. He'll be at the Tour Championship at East Lake. But Lucas Glover led after the second day, led after the third day, and it took him to go to a playoff with Patrick Cantlay, aka Hugo Boss, but he got the win. He's using the Adam Scott putter, clutch putting. He only shot 1 under on a Sunday, but it was enough to win. On 14, he puts it in the water, and I say, oh my God, the tournament's over for him. And then he misses a putt on 15 for birdie. That was very makeable. 16, the par 5, he gets it. Had a really long putt on 17 for par. He sinks that, and Patrick Cantlay put it in the drink on 18 in the playoff hole. He puts it in the middle of the fairway, and he wins back-to-back weeks. Over the last 2 weeks, he's made $4.88 million. Last season, he made 1.8. The entire season in 2022. He's 43 years old. It's incredible what he's doing here. Lucas Glover, not exactly a brand name, not exactly a household name that you think about. But not only that, with his play, unless Zach Johnson picks the Ryder Cup team and he only chooses his friends and he only chooses the people that you think he should take, Lucas Glover is going to be on the Ryder Cup team. And that's going to be ahead of a guy named Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas, who's not at this playoff. Not playing, didn't play last week, not playing the next 2. If we're talking about merit, Justin Thomas will be sitting his ass at home while the Ryder Cup team is playing. And Lucas Glover will be playing. And Ricky Fowler will be playing on the Ryder Cup team. Guys you wouldn't expect to see there. But it's an interesting position. Because Zach Johnson and Justin Thomas are really good friends. And Justin Thomas has this allure about him, and he's a great golfer. He's a 2-time major champion. Don't get me wrong. But 2023, he's basically been Alek Manoah, which is shit. Garbage. Poo-poo. So are you going with the hot hand, or are you going with the guy who was good last year? Other sports, this wouldn't be a discussion. You're going with the guy who's giving you production. Now, okay, Lucas Glover's 43. He's got an ugly putter. Okay. He can hit a fairway. He's won 2 events this year. He beat Patrick Cantlay in a playoff. Patrick Cantlay's been money at these playoff events. He won 2 of them last year, for Christ's sake. He won the St. Jude and he won the BMW before losing at East Lake the Tour Championship to Rory. So there's interesting developments here. You see McIlroy finishes tied for 3rd with Tommy Fleetwood. Tommy Fleetwood comes so close to getting to another playoff. And I believe he's made the most money now on tour in the history of the tour without winning an event, which is a category you don't want to be in. But I like Tommy Fleetwood. He's a good golfer, and he's so positive, and you see him out there, you're like, you wanted to see him have success. But it's an interesting spot for Zach Johnson and for the tour, because I didn't expect to see Lucas Glover winning tour events at age 43 in a playoff, in the playoffs. And for him to be inside the top 30 and guys like Justin Thomas and Mackenzie Hughes to be out. Tough break for Mackenzie Hughes, who just missed on making the top 50, finished 51st For Canada, Adam Hadwin is through. You have Adam Svensson, I believe, is 38. You have Corey Connors, Nick Taylor. So a solid showing for Canadians this season. To have 3 Canadians inside the top 50, all vying for spots. Jordan Spieth had a really good weekend until Sunday. I thought he might win, but he lost all control. Yelling at his caddy. My God, his caddy deserves a raise. But we got the BMW this weekend. BMW this weekend in Illinois. Then we go to Atlanta at East Lake Golf Club for the Tour Championship the following weekend. I don't expect the glove to win again, but again, he's going to be inside the top 30 after being 120th in early July. He's got to think that change of a putter. He switched to the Adam Scott putter. And I hate the Adam Scott putter because it works for him. It's not fancy. Doesn't look good at all, but he's getting production with it. So maybe something for other golfers to think about. But a hell of a run for Lucas Glover. This is news as we are just live here. The Edmonton Elks announced on Tuesday that they have mutually agreed to part ways with President and CEO Victor Cui. Effective immediately, Cui, a product of Edmonton, was named President and CEO of the Elks in January 2022, so he was not on the job all that long. We thank Victor for his work during his time at the club. This was a difficult decision for everyone involved, but as a board, we believe it's in the best interest of all parties to move in a new direction. This is interesting because the Elks are head and shoulders the worst team in the CFL. They have lost 23 straight home games, which is a North American record for pro sports. They had a 23-0 lead on Thursday. They ended up losing the game to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I'm still stunned Chris Jones still has a job at Edmonton with the way the season's gone. They play again on Thursday against Hamilton, which quite frankly gives them their best chance to win again. It's not at home, but it gives them their best chance to get their first win of the season because they are 0-9. Hamilton's down to their third-string quarterback at this point, and it's been ugly for them as well. They were hoping for a bounce-back season. Bo Levi Mitchell's been on the field for 3 games the entire season. They've dealt with some bad circumstances. But Edmonton parts with their CEO and president of football operations. For sure, by the end of the year, Chris Jones will be fired. They'll look in a new direction. They have Trey Ford, the Canadian, at quarterback now. He was sitting on the bench way too long in Miami. He looked decent in his first game. As a whole, I think the CFL this year's been pretty good. It's a great story. Chad Kelly has been awesome for the Argonauts. His first year as a starter, he's been phenomenal. They're 7-1 in the East. They've looked really good. They look confident. They're really great on offense. In the West, it's Winnipeg and BC. Both teams are 7-2. Vernon Adams Jr. is back now for the BC Lions. He gives them a much better chance to win games opposed to Dane Evans. But those two teams are really good. Toronto's great in the East. Montreal is kind of lurking. They're 5-3. I don't think they're a great team. But again, there's a lot of teams that aren't that good. Opposed to the Red Blacks, I think they're better than the Red Blacks. I think they're better than the Tiger Cats. Saskatchewan, no Trevor Harris. There's been no quarterbacks this year. Hamilton doesn't have a quarterback. Edmonton doesn't have a quarterback. Ottawa doesn't have a quarterback, even though Crum is starting to play like a guy who could be a starter. It's just no Trevor Harris for Saskatchewan, so it's been a revolving door. It's been a tough year for injuries for the quarterback position. Been open auditions the whole season. With the three teams at the top of the league, Winnipeg, BC, and Toronto have had the most consistency at the quarterback position, and that's why they're winning. Sometimes it just comes down to something that simple. Let's pivot to the NFL. First things first, announced this morning, Shane Steichen, Indianapolis Colts, first-year head coach, states that Anthony Richardson, the 4th overall pick in the draft, is the team's starting quarterback to start the season. No more dilemma, no more is it a competition with Gardner Minshew. Anthony Richardson is the guy moving forward. We talked about this on the AFC South preview show. This is the right move. He needs to play. He needs to get reps, learn. I watched part of his game this weekend against the Bills. He looked pretty good. He looked better than I thought he would in his first preseason game, quite frankly, opposed to, say, CJ Stroud, who struggled. He had his moments where he missed some throws that he should have completed, certainly. But he's got so much athleticism. He can use his legs. They need run-pass option offense in Indianapolis. When Jonathan Taylor is healthy, they will have more weapons for him. A dynamic offense for him to run. So this is the right move by the Indianapolis Colts. Gardner Minshew is a great backup. He did it in Jacksonville. He did it in Philadelphia last year. He's becoming a Chase Daniel type guy where he's on a bunch of teams and he's a backup quarterback. You might need him to play a game and he can get you a win like he did for Philly last year. But Indy needs Anthony Richardson to play, to develop, and to be their quarterback of the future. And you might as well start now because your team, you're in a division that you think maybe we can be competitive. And if Shane Steichen believes Anthony Richardson gives the team the best chance to win, then you go with Anthony Richardson. I think Houston is not named a starter yet because I don't know if they're sure CJ Stroud's the right option right away. Davis Mills might get the team a best chance to win from the jump rather than CJ Stroud. So I think they want to wait to see. Richardson is their best option, so they're going with him. So now there's 2 rookies confirmed starting week 1. You have Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis, and you have Bryce Young in Carolina. Still waiting on, like I said, you're still waiting on CJ Stroud. Will Levis is not going to start in Tennessee to begin. He's fighting for the backup job with Malik Willis. Dorian Thompson-Robinson's going to be a backup in Cleveland. Sean Clifford is fighting for the backup role behind Jordan Love in Green Bay. So there's only so many spots for these guys. This weekend, watch some of the Packers Friday night against Cincinnati. I thought Jordan Love looked confident. I thought he has a great arm. The bootleg offense, I love to see the way they create plays and the way they run their offense. The scheme is good because Matt LaFleur is a really good offensive coach. He coached Aaron Rodgers for a number of years. He knows what he's doing, but he looked comfortable. He had time. He's still got a great offensive line in Green Bay. We're going to talk about that tomorrow with the NFC North preview. He missed one throw that he should make in the middle of the field to Luke Musgrave, and it was on a bootleg. He's running a split in the middle of the field, and he overthrew him. It was there. He should have completed the pass. But other than that, I thought he looked very confident. Again, you're going to have A.J. Dillon. He's going to have Aaron Jones. They're going to run the football a lot in Green Bay because they have that ability. And then you have Jordan Love off of that with play action. I think this team, they're not a Super Bowl threat. Well, don't want to ruin this because we're talking about it tomorrow. I think they're going to be better than people think. Because Aaron Rodgers wasn't all that good last year. That's another thing that doesn't get talked about enough. His play wasn't that great, so maybe that's why the team wasn't that good. Just a thought. Tajay Spears, Tennessee Titans running back out of Tulane. He's going to be behind Derrick Henry. But when he gets on the I love him. Great speed, edge. He was great at Tulane. I think he's going to be used in Tennessee. I would line him up in the slot. You can use him at running back. He's a guy that flashed for me. How about Nathan Rourke? Highlight of the weekend. I mean, 3 times look he's going to get sacked, tackled, fights out of it, then on one leg basically heaves one into the end zone for a touchdown. I thought he made a good impression with the Jaguars in his first preseason game, or at the very least, he even said this, and he's a great interview, very thoughtful guy. He was interviewed on Overdrive last week. He said, I'm auditioning for all 32. Because Trevor Lawrence is the guy in Jacksonville. That's set in stone. That isn't changing anytime soon. But if Nathan Rourke could become a number 2 in a spot where maybe he gets a look sooner rather than later, that's a possibility as well. If they choose to go with CJ Beathard behind Trevor Lawrence, maybe he gets claimed by another team after training camp. But I thought he looked good in his first preseason action of his young NFL career. And the other big one for me was the Saints offense. No Chris Jones for the Chiefs, who's still holding out. Nick Bosa, Chris Jones, 2 guys that are holding out right now for new contracts, and they remain away from the respective teams. So no Chris Jones to get to Derek Carr. But that Saints offense, when Alvin Kamara is back from his suspension, Michael Thomas is healthy for the first time in seemingly 3 years. Traquan Smith, Chris Olave, who's a stud, Jawan Johnson, who I'm loving more and more. Get the guy with the ball since he's fast as hell for a tight end. Good offensive line. And Derek Carr. A team that believes in Derek Carr, gets some time in the pocket. I thought the Saints were, if not the most impressive team this weekend, right up there. Because yes, it's the preseason. You can say it doesn't really matter, but they're playing their first team. So are the Chiefs. And they look strong. I'm trying to think of other guys that played well as I run through the schedule this weekend. Kenny Pickett had 1 drive for the Steelers, but it was a touchdown drive. He looked very competent, looked very cool, calm, and collected. Found George Pickens, 33-yard touchdown. Let's see. I mentioned Nathan Rourke. Bryce Young and the Panthers didn't score a point. By the way, look, calm. He made the right throws. Justin Fields had 129 yards passing on 3 passes, but he completed all 3, 2 touchdowns on 2 screens. What I'll say about that is he's got skill position players. He found DJ Moore, he found Khalil Herbert, and they broke it off for touchdowns. Didn't have the ability to do that before. Damar Hamlin, 5 tackles, first game back. Just great to see him on the field. That's what I'll say about him. The fact that he's on the field and he's playing football in a preseason game, whether he makes the team or not, a phenomenal story. I'm always rooting for him. It's hard not to. But just to see him playing out there and he's making tackles and he's making things happen, good on that man. News yesterday. Ezekiel Elliott signed with the New England Patriots. 1 year, $3 million. It can be worth up to 6. They go Zeke Elliott with Ramondre Stevenson. They're going to be a physical group. They have a physical offensive line. They got 2 physical running backs. And yeah, they're going to be a retro team. compared to what the NFL is. They have a quarterback who doesn't move all that well. They have skill position players who are lackluster, to say the least. But they have two running backs who can run it down your throat. And if your defenses aren't as compact, aren't as physical, you could be in trouble against the Patriots because they will run it 25 to 30 times a game. So I think Zeke Elliott to the Patriots makes a whole lot of sense. I think he's not going to be Zeke of 2016 when he came into the NFL and he led the NFL in rushing and he was a beast and he's the best running back in the NFL for a period of time. But can he be a number two? He's still really good at pass blocking. He can help Mac Jones in that area. He'll serve his purpose. He makes no money. It's very low. It's a low gamble for the Patriots. I think it's a good gamble because he'll be worth that money. Also, Dalvin Cook finally signed with the team. He is a New York Jet. He visited the Jets 10 days ago, but he's finally decided this is the team that I want to go to. I understand it for the Jets. You get depth. You get a good player. But you got Breece Hall. I don't think they needed him. Dalvin Cook, I said he could have went to the Bucks. It would have made more sense on the Dolphins, the Cowboys. But he gets $8 million. Maybe other teams weren't willing to pay him that. I think this is a miss for other teams more than it's a win for the Jets because it's nice to have him if Breece Hall blows out his ACL again. Sure, it's awesome. But do I think Dalvin Cook's going to be thrilled to be playing in an offense where Breece Hall is going to be getting more touches than him? No. I don't think he's going to like it real quick once they start playing games when he goes, oh, wait. This guy played last year, and before he blew out his ACL, he was having record-breaking numbers for a rookie. So he's pretty good at the position. So I might not get that many looks. I might not get to play all that much. Well, that's not that fun for me. Minnesota, I'm out there every down. I'm a 3-down back. I'm Mr. Utility. I can do anything on this team. I'm asked to do a lot. I just think buyer beware for Dalvin Cook if he goes to the Cowboys, Tony Pollard is coming off a broken leg. I don't think he's going to be ready to play week 1. And if he is, are they going to play him all that much? How injured is he? Who knows? Dolphins, okay, you're better than Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert's a good back. You're better. Dalvin Cook's been a Pro Bowler the last 4 years. I think the Jets we're going to talk about them later in the week. Get Dalvin Cook, you get Aaron Rodgers in the same offseason. They've both been Pro Bowlers the last 4 years. You get Dalvin Cook for nothing. You get Aaron Rodgers for not all that much either. Because Green Bay wanted to get rid of him. Not a bad little cue for the Jets. Also, Zach Martin restructured his contract with the Dallas Cowboys. He was slated to make $13 million this year, $14 million next year. They bumped that up. He'll be making over $18 million the next 2 seasons. So it gets him in line with the best guards in the NFL. They had to do this. He's their most important offensive player on the team. More than Dak Prescott, more than CeeDee Lamb, more than Tony Paul. I don't care who it is. He's more important than all of them. Because he protects that, he creates the running game what it is. He gives time for Dak Prescott, and that offensive line's been huge for Dak over the course of his career. So he is back in the fold. He went to his first day of training camp yesterday in Oxnard, California. So that's what happened over the weekend. Quite a bit for the middle of August. So I mentioned we got the college football technically starts next weekend. Notre Dame Navy in Dublin, Ireland. So that's upcoming. That should be fun. Should be a blowout, but again, I'm going to watch it because college football is back. But also next weekend, this is the 26th, by the way, if you're just tracking. Tell you one thing I hate about Sportsnet and their app. They don't like to tell you what's coming up with college sports, maybe because they don't care about them, which aggravates me because I really care about them. But again, that's just me. So you got Navy, Notre Dame, Hawaii, Vanderbilt, San Jose State, USC. So Caleb Williams starts his season. Then you go to the 31st on a Thursday and you get Florida against Utah. That's a fun game. Nebraska, Minnesota. Friday night, you get Miami Hurricanes first game, Louisville, Georgia Tech, Stanford at Hawaii. And then Saturday is the first big day. Michigan, Colorado, Deion's debut at TCU, Virginia, Tennessee, Ohio State at Indiana, Buffalo at Wisconsin. Let's see. West Virginia at Penn State, North Carolina at South Carolina. That might be the best game of the day. LSU, Florida State on Sunday night. Two top 10 ranked teams. Then you got Clemson at Duke on Monday night. So that's upcoming. Today, España, or Spain, as they call it, they beat Sweden, so they're off to the Women's World Cup final. That'll be on Sunday. Tomorrow morning, it is Australia, the host, against England in the other semifinals. So that's upcoming. Also, David Krejci, as I predicted, would retire, and he did yesterday. Great career, great Boston Bruin, Stanley Cup champion. He was phenomenal for a long time with the Bruins. He went back to play for 1 year in the Czech Republic so he could play in the Olympics. Then came back this year. The team had the best regular season in NHL history. So they'll miss him. I think they'll really miss him. Like I said, you don't got Bergeron, you don't have Krejci. Their center depth is not great, to say the least. They got Charlie Coyle's got to be better, and they're gonna have to rely on these guys that I wouldn't trust to be productive. But tomorrow, NFC North preview. We'll talk about an interesting division. Tonight in the world of pro sports, you have the tennis tournament in Cincinnati. You got Astros, Marlins, Phillies, Blue Jays, Orioles in San Diego. We got another win there last night. Brewers at the Dodgers are 12-1, I believe, or 13-1 in the month of August. They have caught fire. They got 71 wins now, which is incredible. Still trailing the Braves by 5, but I mean, come on. It's impressive stuff. The Braves just crushed the Yankees last night. The Yankees had a 7-3 lead on the Marlins on Sunday, and they blew that. People are freaking out in the Bronx. The team sucks. Come on, Michael K. You know they're not good. They're a game above 500. They're going nowhere fast. So we update just before we wrap today, we'll update the wild card standings. So you got Toronto in the third spot, Seattle trails them by 2 games, Boston by 3. In the National League, Philly is a 2.5 game lead on San Francisco. San Francisco currently leads the Marlins by half a game, and the Cubs and Cincinnati by a full game. Cubs lose on Sunday, but they're playing good baseball. They've really found their place. They're playing the White Sox for 3 games, so it's a good series to be in. You also got the Reds got the Guardians. That's a good series for them. Like a good team for them to play because they can't score runs, and that's something the Reds do aplenty. They can score runs. They just usually can't stop teams from scoring runs against them. So that's it for today. NFC North preview tomorrow, back to a regular show on Thursday, and a double dip coming on Friday. So thank you all for the support. Thank you all for tuning in. Talk to you tomorrow. Just to the point.